Hey everyone, thanks for coming to my YouTube channel. I'm very excited. So here's the deal. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to do resin crafts. So what I do is I make resin out of flowers and shells and all different things that I find all around my island or all throughout nature. I'm going to take you with me along the process. And in fact, today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be harvesting daisies and buttercups from my garden. I'm going to put them in flower drying crystals, and you can come with me along the process and I'll show you how to do it. Now, there is a part two to what we're going to be doing on this channel. While I'm making art, not just resin art, I'm going to make all different kinds of art. I'm not going to show you how to do all different kinds of art unless, we talk about it and you decide you want that. This is a channel for you and I. So whatever you guys want, just comment. And if I can do it and I feel like doing it and enough people want me to do it, then I'll do it. That's how it's going to work. So anyway, back to the topic. So what's going to happen? A lot of people tell me when I proposed the idea of this YouTube channel that they wanted to learn how to make and do resin art the way kind of similar to my resin art style, or they at least wanted to see my process. So I also have a lot of people who want to talk about reality TV shows, and I'm super into Housewives. I'm super into Bravo. I'm super into all kinds of different pop culture. I've got a lot of opinions on things. I'm a little bit into politics, more than a little bit, but I'm not going to talk about it that much because, we're here to have fun. But anyway, so my plan is I'm going to do resin videos that everybody who is interested in resin can watch and follow along and learn how to make your own awesome resin crafts using flower drying process and other things. Today we're just going to learn how to do flower drying, so that's why I keep mentioning that. But I'm going to do all kinds of art. There's going to be jelly plate printing, which is using acrylic paint on a jelly plate and reverse painting. So stay tuned for that. Those are shows to come in the future. The reality TV show side of things is going to be me recapping reality TV shows, giving you my opinions. I've been to all of the Bravo cons, so I'm going to do that separately. Well, I'm going to do that while I'm creating my own resin projects. I'm going to, I'll probably show you what I'm doing, but it won't be as tutorial-like. Because while I'm telling you and teaching you how to do resin, I can't really talk about reality TV shows. And I don't know that the people that are interested in that want to hear about reality TV shows. But while I'm talking about reality TV shows, I'm definitely going to show you some of the resin projects I'm working on. It'll be less of a tutorial. So if you're in it for tutorial and not reality TV, know this going into it. I'm not going to explain it every single time, but I will explain it from time to time. This is my first video, so bear with me. We're all learning. I'm very excited. Come with me now. Come with me into my garden, and I will show you flower drying process from beginning to end, starting in spring with buttercups and daisies. Come on with me. Thanks for joining, you guys. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to be on this journey together. It's going to be great. While we're here, you better like, you better follow, you better subscribe, you better hit that bell, do all the YouTube things. Tell your friends if they're interested in resin. Anyway, comment. I don't know. Thanks, guys. Stay tuned. Here we go. We're going to dry some daisies. Hey everyone, so my daisies have finally come up and they're perfect, and now is the time to harvest them. Even though they just came up, what happens during the summer is bugs start eating them, because of course they do. But we don't want our flowers to be bug eaten, so we gotta get them before the bugs get them. And so I like to get them when they first pop open. I like the insides to have a little bit of green like that, but it's also nice when they're all yellow, because sometimes that green doesn't really dry so great. So it's very hit and miss. All of this resin stuff is very hit and miss. So when you're out collecting, you want to collect as many as you possibly can, because you're not gonna get them all to turn out. That's my pro advice. I'm gonna carry on collecting flowers. So in my garden at this time of year, the buttercups and daisies are what's happening this time of year. Things like foxgloves. But right now these buttercups are just spring up. They'll be beautiful flowers when they spring up, but they're still growing, which will actually works out great because these guys will live in my drying bin while these other flowers are blooming. So spring is in your favor when you're collecting your materials for resin art. I have 2 flowers that have bloomed with this type of plant, but none of the rest of them have. So I'm going to wait, but I wanted to show you them because I talked about them so you can see how pretty they are. I wish I knew all their names. I'm just learning this, so bear with me. I don't know their names. I just know they're pretty, and I think that's all that matters. All dirty and wet. Right, so I just got back in from walking my dogs, and I did a little collecting while I was out there. Buttercups are just gorgeous right now. Let me show you. Look at them. They're so pretty and they're so perfect. And because they're new, spring here, so all of these flowers are new. They're perfect, and no bugs have gotten at them. That's an important thing to look for. Nothing eaten them. You don't want to put any bugs into your drying bin. Those are my tips on that. And you're looking for all the petals to be as much intact as you can possibly get them to be. Anyway, so now the next step is to put them into my drying bin. When I collect, I like to collect in cardboard because it instantly kind of starts the drying process. It also keeps them flat. And if you are in a windy environment, these little boxes have lids, so I can put a lid on it for a bit, or it keeps it somewhat sheltered with the sides of the box. But that's important. You don't want to collect a whole bunch of things and then have them all get tossed away in the wind. And you also don't want to collect things in a bundle like this if you can avoid it, because it bends up your petals. And if you bruise your petals, the bruises will show in the resin. You might not see them before. You might not see the bruising in your petals until it hits the resin. And it's kind of a cool effect. I mean, it's a little bit of a happy accident. It kind of makes your petals somewhat translucent, but ideally, in the, the rule of thumb is you want to avoid it as much as possible. But, happy accidents are happy accidents. Learn the rules to break the rules, as they say. It's one of those things. So I like to wear gloves when I'm working with flower drying crystals. They a little bit stop the crystals from getting under my nails, and I just feel like it's safer. So I always put on gloves. I always wear protective equipment when I work with resin, when I work with any kind of chemicals. So just know that is a real thing. Allergies are a real thing. So if you're allergic to resin or, I don't know, flowers or anything, just don't do this. Find something else to do. There's Dasher. Hey Dash, how are you doing this morning? Anyway, so I just wanted to mention that now. So these are some of the flowers that I have dried already. And what I'm working towards is I need to make some candle holders because I'm going to be selling them at the market this summer. And I want to include some of these spring flowers because they've turned out so nicely. So, but I also want to include some buttercups and daisies, which I don't have. I have a few of that I've gotten started on right here, but I don't have very many of them. So that's why this morning's collection will add to my materials. And this is kind of how I work. I gather my materials while simultaneously working on other projects. So these have been drying here for probably about 2 months now. Maybe not 2 months, a month and a half at least. While I've been waiting for the other flowers to grow, and not just grow, but
grow and bloom and become perfect. And they all grow at different times, and they dry in my drying bin at different rates. So once it all syncs up, then I have enough flowers. I can go ahead and start making tons of stuff. So right now it's spring. We're in the collecting phase. Okay, so these are my flower drying crystals, and it's in a big bin. What I should tell you is these are not new, obviously, flower drying crystals. You can reuse flower drying crystals over and over again. What I do, I'll do another video about the process of how you reuse your flower drying crystals. But just know that these are not new, and you can tell because not only are there some remnants of like flowers, the color, and it kind of starts developing a bit of a smell. So it sort of smells like a flower shop. Like it smells like flowers. I don't know how to describe it really, but see how the crystals themselves are like somewhat of a green color. When they're fresh, it's just all clear. Like it's just all that white color. It's not, these things turn color to let you know how old your crystals are, which are kind of helpful. So what I do is I take a little bit of the crystals and I put them to the side because this is more than enough. I mean, this is like way too many crystals for the amount of flowers, but I just want to get it in my bin. I don't want to like mess around too much. So all I do is I take the flowers and I go like that and I put them in sort of one by one and lay them flat. This is one of those little Japanese maple things that I got, which is awesome. This guy, I might dig in a little bit more and just bury him because he's kind of tough, so he'll last. These daisy petals are quite delicate, so you got to be careful with anything delicate. But look at, he can just live on top. So if you do bury anything, know that you can use the second layer. But these delicate petals, if they dry too much, or, you know, sometimes just things happen, they'll fall off. You also want to get it ideally before the yellow starts, like before the pollen in the flower starts spreading, because it will spread to your flower and then you'll get kind of a pollen-y yellow daisy, rather than, ideally you want the white yellow contrast to be as like harsh as possible. So, and while you're doing this, you kind of check for, you know, maybe there's little bugs or dirt or whatever. If you get a little bug in your drying bin, necessarily, they will live in there and then they'll eat your flowers while they're drying, and you'll come back to eaten flowers, which nobody wants to come back to. So kind of pay attention. This one, it sort of looks like there's bugs on there, but those flower petals are just bent. But I'm not going to put him in yet. I'm going to do my daisies first. And I try and keep them as flat as possible. Although, to be honest with you, if they're not flat, when you put them in the candles or whatever else you're going to use them for, they kind of look like they're moving. So not being entirely flat is okay for some projects, and being entirely flat is great for other projects. Like, it really depends on the mold that you're using, and it depends a lot on the thickness of whatever you're doing, whatever you're trying to create. Like, my flower balls are balls, so there's lots of room for the flowers to move and look alive, and, you know, some movement in your flowers for a flower ball is great. But if you put them in a flat cutting board, say, you'll end up doing like 10,000 top coats because all your flowers won't sink. Or if you use it in a table, for example, you'll do a whole bunch of top coating because your flowers won't sink. Because the width of a flower is only so much, right? But if it's floating, it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. Like roses are really big. So these are some things to pay attention to. Now this guy, I don't like how long that stem is because the stems you don't really need. So I just trim them off. And even if they're in my bin and I don't really want the stems to be that long, you can just come after. And as long as you're like careful about it, you can just trim them off. And even if you're not careful about it, you can just rebury them. You know, all of this is, you can do over again. The only thing you want to be really careful about, the more you handle your flowers, the higher the opportunity is for bruising. And bruising will show, but it won't necessarily show right away. So when you go to make your project, if your flowers are bruised, you won't know because you won't see it. And then you put them in a project, you add your resin, and all of a sudden you can't see your flowers because they've turned translucent. And that's when you'll know. But having said that, it's also not the worst thing to have happen because translucent flowers look cool too. So it really depends on what you're going for, and happy accidents really, you know, really are a thing. So don't freak yourself out. I say always do as much as you can. Like I use as many flowers as I can. I dry as many flowers as I can, because if something messes up in the drying process, I'll have more flowers to work with. And there's always, you know, we always lose a few, you know, we don't lose a ton. Well, we kind of do. I would say the ratio of flowers that work out to not work out are probably 70-30. So if you are planning a wedding and you want to preserve your wedding bouquet, make sure you kind of keep that in mind. Like give me or whoever is working with your flowers as many flowers as possible. Tell your florist you need some backup flowers for your bouquet, and it'll just be helpful. You know, we can always make whatever work, and we can always try it with what we have, but you know, more is more, as they say. Anyway, so I finished doing, the daisies are all covered up, and now I'm going to add the buttercups because the buttercups are even more delicate. I kind of want them to live on top, and you can really stuff your bin quite full. I've heard people say that, you know, you can't have your flowers touch and, you know, certain things, and I don't really know why they say that, and, you know, do whatever works for you. But for me, I do my bin in layers, and, you know, as I said before, nothing's ever perfect, but I've had a lot of good success, so it works for me. You do whatever works for you. If you have a better way of doing it, you do it that way. So I've got all these buttercups, and I just picked them, so I'm hoping being in a big bundle like that, they won't be bruised. Now, some of them I pick with the intention of being a whole piece, like this whole piece to be dry. And this bin, because it's getting full, might not be the greatest option for that. So right now, I'm just going to leave that guy to the side. And anything that's sort of like that, I'm going to leave to the side. But, you know, something like this, where I probably don't want the stem, that's going to go in this bin. So it's a good idea to sort of have multiple bins, kind of depending on the size of the projects you want to do. I mean, you can also just dry one buttercup and put it in one necklace. You can even use UV resin, and you could be done. Like that's your whole thing, start to finish. You don't have any need to make anything more. You can 100% just do that, and it'll be cheap and easy. However, if you're into resin art as a crafting hobby or an art, you're going to want to have as many options as you can, just like painters want to have as many paints as they can and as many brushes as they can. We want to have as many flowers as we can, because these are our paints as resin flower artists. This guy looks good. I'm going to leave him to the side. And we stuff the bin. If you're ever having a problem with keeping the flower flat, you can also put it in your bin. Instead of putting it in your bin this way, you can put it in your bin this way. And then when I pour the flower drying crystals on top, it will flatten that part out a little bit. And then you don't have to force anything. Love the way the maple leaves look. So I have a few of those that I'm just gonna also add in. I took them from the kind of a gnarly part of the tree at the bottom. So a lot of the leaves are all kind of icky. So I don't use those, but there's really some gems that I get in there because they're tiny. It's sort of where the tree is trying to grow another tree. And the baby leaves that I get sometimes are pretty cool. They can be super small and like a perfect little maple leaf, like this one, like this. It's so tiny and it's like a perfect little maple leaf. And I only get maybe like 1 or 2 a year. So I kind of got lucky today and I'm pretty happy, and it's super red. I don't know if you can tell by the camera, but it's really red and it's kind of a perfect shape. This one, because it's kind of rare like that, I won't put that in a flower drying bin. I'm going to put him in a flat. I changed my mind and decided to put him in there. So I hope he's safe. I'm sure he will be. I just get a little anxious. So now I take the flower drying crystals that I kept to the side and I just sort of gently pour on top. And because like this one I want to keep flat, I pour it in the middle, and see how he flattens out on its own? That's what you want. And I kind of just pour a little bit delicately on each one to weigh it down, keep it flat. Just to kind of get things started. Plus you want to make sure you have enough flower drying crystals for each flower. So you have to portion yourself properly. So I like to just weigh them down a little bit, get it started. This one I decided to keep on the side, so I'm gonna just put a little more on him. There's my safe guy. The reason why I worried about him is because he's so tiny, I might lose him. So I put in a marker. Whenever I have something a little bit special, I put my scoop in. But I'm gonna cover the rest of the flowers in the area fully. And then I'm gonna put my scoop on top. So when I come back, I know, oh, there's a scoop there. So there must be something special that I want, or something small or something delicate. That's kind of my sign to myself. Then I just go around and I cover and submerge as much of the remaining flowers as possible, including stems. And if you don't get the stems, it doesn't really matter. because I'm not going to use the stems. And they will dry out. If you do need to use the stem, you got to fully submerge the stem. So if you find yourself wanting to use the stem, like the reason why I kept these ones separate is because I'm going to lie them flat in the bin and cover them. In which case the stem will then be covered, because whatever you are using, the resin needs to be 100% dry. You can't have any moisture in your flowers or they will start to mold and rot, and you'll see it in your resin. You'll see it in your finished product, and it'll be basically just a bowl of goo. Or it'll be like, it just isn't as nice. You don't want it. You want all your flowers dry, all your leaves dry, all your stems dry. If you're using wood, you want to seal it. If you're using any type of paper, you want to seal it, because if you're using paper, it will turn, like it'll go like it's wet. Resin makes things wet. Keep that in mind. Close up my bin. Make sure it's sealed. And then I put it on the shelf, and it stays on the shelf drying for a week. We'll see. It kind of depends. It depends on the humidity of your room, the temperature, but I like to keep them for about a week, but I'll check in on them. My storage bins. Beside my laundry soap and my big mess, this is what studios are like. Get my flowers together and keep them for the year. Thanks, you guys. Thanks for watching me, ThatLadyHeather. This is how I dry
Like,
my flowers.
subscribe, share with all your friends, do all the YouTube things. I'm trying to get a following. Right now it's just me and I think my 13 subscribers. Thank you, my 13 subscribers. Love you guys. My name is Heather, aka ThatLadyHeather. You'll get to know me. What we're going to do on this channel, we're going to talk about reality TV shows while we create resin art. How fun is that?